Hey, it's Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. This is my review of episode 4 of the live action of Avatar The Last Airbender. Uh, so you might be saying, well, I saw you episode 3, but didn't see episode 2. Well, episode 2 you have to go check out on Rumble at this point, as of the time I'm filming this video. I am disputing a copyright claim that YouTube has tried to scam me with. But that being said, let's get into it. Now, I always preface this by saying I am not trying to do they did this better in the animated version, so therefore this sucks. Okay? I personally prefer the animated way over this. I will probably never watch this series again unless they fix it in season 2. Okay? Because, so, if I've said repeatedly, and I'll say one more time, people who've never seen the animation or who don't care to ever watch animation will probably think this is okay. Right? People who might watch it to go watch the animation and say hopefully get a better experience out of it. That's possible too. And I can understand as a person who prefers the animation, really enjoyed the original animation, why this is a great disappointment. So there's the caveat. Right now, anything else to preface before I go in? Okay, so let's just get right into it because I don't think this will be a long video. There's not a lot of. This is probably, in some respects, the best episode. Like, I mean, if you were to break this up into scene by scene, there might be in every 1 hour episode, right? There might be 20 minutes of really good scenes, 20 to 25 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes of horribly written scenes. And then like maybe 5 to 10 awoke stuff that that pervert that twist the original material. So that's kind of where my impression with the first 3. This one, however, has way cut down. The bad writing has been reduced a little bit. I'm beginning to wonder if with the writing, if they presume that children are stupid, and so this show is basically a children's show that adults can watch. Despite a little pushing it too far with some of the teen or more content last episode, with the sort of grinding that Yuki and Sokka did, I'm beginning to wonder if they think kids are stupid, because the writing aside, right, the biggest directorial flaw is the constant is the constant use of tell, don't show. Meaning the characters are constantly stopping to explain what they're doing and their motivations and whatever, right? And then they're doing stuff, right? And it's kind of like watching the prequel trilogy for Star Wars, where the actors would constantly do a bunch of expositionary dialogue, and then you'd see a bunch of action sequence and special effects sequence, and back to the expositionary dialogue, and just circle on that drain. Now, that doesn't mean you don't explain things as characters, right? You have to do that, okay? But you should do it in the context of your particular actions, not, like you could get. So they did, like, for example, in this episode they did something good. They showed the funeral for General Iroh's son, Luyan, whatever, and they had Zuko, who apparently has a close relationship with Uncle Iroh, who was good, nice to him, as opposed to his father, who was a jerk. And Zuko sits with Uncle Iroh, and that's a great scene where they're telling you by showing you that Zuko respects and cares for his uncle, right? I hear my voice tear up because it's individual by itself. The funeral scene for Iroh's son is a very good scene. You see that Ozai does have a sort of sense of, there is a sense of humanity that's been driven mad somehow. We learn eventually that in the animation, I don't honestly don't remember if they've shown us in the live action. I think they did this episode, but it all blends in. That no, we don't. No. I watched the scene from later, so we'll learn it in like the 6th episode or something like that. But that the reason Ozai, one of the reasons Ozai went a little nuts is because his father ordered him to kill Zuko, which he might or might not have been willing to do. But his father put him between a rock and a hard place, right? It's because he disrespected his older brother or something. And so you got the impression that the Fire Lords are crazy for some reason. So something drove them over the edge, and we don't know why. Okay, so that's enough talk. Let's take a look. See here. Okay, as usual, subtitles are on, audio's off. I'm gonna skim through some stuff. So Uncle Iroha's been imprisoned, and he's talking to Aang here. Keep doing Aang. It's Aang. And a little chit chatting about Zuko. Iroha's trying to give. So for those who don't know, eventually Zuko and Aang become very close friends. They learn how to do advanced firebending together. Zuko teaches them the basics, and they learn from the dragons and all that. So it evolves into a really good story. But so this scene is breaking the ice. I'm okay with this. This again, this is one of those little 30-second scenes that on its own is pretty good, you know. And also, I've said in the previous episodes, when the kid who's playing Aang is in these little scenes like this, he's really good. Okay, I think he's a better actor than the material he's been given could prove, because he's given some really hammy like dialogue that like if you heard like okay, I think they actually pull some lines and stuff from the animation. The problem is you can't, you have to deliver a different way in live action, because it's not it's not too different, but you have to have a slight difference in delivery. And I think the director is not talented enough to see that, and the writing doesn't change it just enough to make it work appropriately in the live action. Here's bad writing. Now, I know it kind of worked out this way in the animation, so I'm not saying you have to do it the same way, but this could have been written so much better, right? Because they've already established that, so this is a darker universe, the live action, than the animation, right? Killing is much more prevalent in the live action. Even though we know it occurred, the massacres or whatever, in the animation, you got the impression that it wasn't as grim dark in some respects. And maybe you have to do that for live action. But there's almost no way that this guy's plot would work out in the end unless they agreed to cover up, everyone agreed to cover up who knew that he was a spy, right? Or maybe Aang talked to his friend the king, Buki, Tufi, whatever, don't remember the character's name. So look, this guy, I want you to give him a second chance. But they should have showed that scene. Okay? Maybe there would have been a nice conversation for Aang to say, look, there's a guy who's been working with the firebenders. I don't want you to punish him, because he's had no hope. He just wants to save his son's life and the people's lives, and he's been doing it the wrong way. But no one has died yet. No one in here, you know. So, but then the problem comes to who is doing the bombings. Was he involved directly in the bombings, or was it just the Fire Nation spies? The plot's convoluted on this. Essentially, they make it hard to think at the end when like does everyone forget that he was helping the Fire Nation? I mean, I know it works out, but they write it better. No comparing to the animation. For the purpose of this story, how he was made a good guy at the end needed some actual exposition. Instead, they wasted on other stuff. And we're learning about the secret tunnels. Again, we see Katara continuing to improve as an airbender, as a waterbender. You know, I would like to see. I know the next training arc for Aang is when he gets to the Northern Ice Temple, Northern Water Temple. That's fine. I would like to see Aang attempt since we know we're not going to get as many episodes of the live action anime. See Aang attempt to do some other bending styles. So just say I can't quite get that. I'm trying to figure out how to water bend. I know contact. Like I know some of the core concepts because some of the same as bending, but it doesn't have him show that he's struggling to connect the other two bending styles and that he needs a tutor, right? As opposed to, well, he has to have a tutor close to the avatar, right? They just establish it with exposition. Show him struggling to learn the other bending because we don't have as many episodes of the live action animation, so we have to get some stuff moving here. So this scene right here, I'll get back to it. With Zuko infiltrating to save Uncle Iroh. If I recall correctly, Zuko infiltrated in disguise and used his skills of sneaking around and whatever. Had a mask on and everything. And we as the audience did not know it was Zuko until until he took the mask off later. Whereas here it's a semi-comedic, like the bad guys are in infiltration, and I think it takes away from Zuko's character. So, Iroh has come across pretty good, Katara pretty good, Sokka not so good, Aang mostly neutral. Zuko has parts where he's so good and parts where he's bad. There's no in between with that character. And who's our other side? I think I talked all the main characters basically. Now, the nature of the king of Omasha did not come across very well in the early parts of the live action. I know he kind of acts like this in the animation, but it really doesn't come across well until you get him and Aang, excuse me, sorry, Tim and Aang by themselves when they're going through the corridor. Then it kind of gets a little better. I think it just, you think he's you don't, they could have done a little more to establish that he's hopeless and he's upset. In other words, right, he's coming across as a jerk right now, but you don't have a reason for that. And without exposition, they should have been able to convey why that he's feeling hopeless. That he should maybe you could like looks on his face and whatever. Again, the bad writing hard here. Great sets, beautiful costumes. The background actors showing that they know their king is trouble and don't want to call attention to themselves. That makes all sense. This might be the best scene in the whole thing. I kind of enjoyed the caves, the underground cave sequence here. Like once they go into it, a little illogical. I like this, this bit, which is kind of a version of something they do in the animation. I didn't like this, not so much how he was treating Uncle Iroh, but I didn't like that there wasn't better dialogue between the two. Not that Uncle Iroh would say, "Well, my son, you have to have sympathy because my son died" or whatever, but I would think that Uncle Iroh will be able to give him a little bit, draw a little more conversation out. Now, here's more bad writing. Okay, so Ahsoka has responsibility. He had to become the leader of the Southern Water Tribe because his father went to war and never came back, and none of the adult men ever came back. So, what you have to, so he's a boy, but he's a boy just becoming a man under that aegis, and he's troubled by missing his father, by the responsibility of taking care of his family, of his people. He knows there's holes in his training, that he's still being trained, and he knows he has to be a role model for all the other young men because all the adult men are gone. So, and then he of course had the sexism part, right? So they've taken out the sexism part. They've taken out, they allude to the fact that he's burdened by this leadership, but they don't really show it, right? So we're left with Sokka acting like a jerk for no visibly apparent reason, but they do exposition to tell us about it, right? Um, and at this point, if you've taken away the misogyny, uh, and you know, Katara and Sokka should be more on the same page in the show here. There's just some bad writing again in this area. I like this scene. I like this particular scene. I like a little better because we get some sort of like war ramifications of the war type of stuff. We get to the funeral here. Now, this funeral sequence is the best scene in this whole episode and maybe in the whole show. I talked about that already, but I really this is why I chose my thumbnail this size because uh, the bond forming between Uncle Iroh and Zuko. So this is where we're past the point where Aang and the King now when they get into the one on one again, the dialogue for the actors gets better, you know. So Zuko saves Uncle Iroh. They have a nice little combat sequence together. Uncle Iroh doesn't want to kill the guy, you know. And then Aang eventually gives hope back to his friend. And you know the cabbage vendor, you get it again, and Iroh and Zuko, you know, escape the island. So the secret, and then you have the beginning of their friendship, basically, of their uncle and nephew bond. So all in all, it's like I mean, if you want to watch individual scenes, you'll enjoy them. It's when they try to piece it together with the writing that it falls apart, and that is. But the thing is, they haven't done anything that they can't fix in the second season. This is a disappointing first season for the fans of the show, animation, and I don't think people. I think people will mentally kind of be turned off in the sense that the writing just have them constantly going what and not being able to get drawn into the story, right? But they could potentially fix that with season 2 so far. Now I heard some people say after the 5th episode is when it goes off the rails and can't be saved. I don't know. I'm not there. This is episode 4 I'm doing. So anyway, my name is Matt. This has been our Riddle 73 review. Hopefully you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, depending on what YouTube lets me host on. Watch it on Rumble anyway. You know, like if you like, share it out if you can. Have a nice day and enjoy your life.